In this lab, we're continuing to follow your manager's request for you to secure the Cisco switch and router per company policy, this time focusing on the router. To reiterate, the policy states that the iOS must be prevented from attempting to resolve mistyped commands to domain name. The host of the switches should be SW device number underscore model number, and the host name of router should be R device number underscore model number. The console and VTY session should close after 7 minutes. Routers need to have a block for anyone that fails to log in after 4 attempts within a 2-minute period. The block should last for 3 minutes. There should be a strong 10-character password for the privileged exec mode. There should be a strong 10-character password for the console and VTY lines. The network devices need to have their unused ports disabled. The network devices need an MOTD banner that reads unauthorized use of this device is strictly prohibited. CDP should not be enabled on network devices. Switches need to have an IP assigned to a VLAN ID to allow management to remote into the switch. And all plaintext passwords should be encrypted in configuration files. Let's use PC1 and console into the router with a console cable. Then select the terminal desktop app and access the router. So for the router, let's start with instruction number 1. Prevent iOS from attempting to resolve mistyped commands to domain names. We'll use the no IP domain -lookup command to shut off that DNS resolve setting. Next, let's put in the host name of the device, which should be the R device number underscore model number. So in this case, if we do a show version on the router, we can see that the product identifier or PID is Cisco 1941. This means this is a Cisco 1941 router. So the command we want here then is hostname R1 underscore 1941. Let's make a note of all these changes we're making in the work documentation paper so you can write a narrative on what we're doing afterwards. Next, we have the policy of making sure the console and VTY sessions close after 7 minutes. We'll need to do it for the console and the virtual lines. Let's start with the console. Line console 0, exec timeout 70. Now we need to do the same thing for the virtual lines that are used for Telnet and SSH. So we'll configure line VTY 015 to cover all the virtual lines. Then we'll type in the same exec timeout 70 command. Policy 4 states routers need to have a block for anyone that fails to log in after 4 attempts within a 2-minute period. That block should last for 3 minutes. Let's break that down. We want to stop people that will try to brute force, which means try a bunch of different passwords until they get the working one. How? By blocking anyone that fails to log in 4 times within 2 minutes. How does this stop them? By forcing them to stop after every 4 passwords, they'd have to wait 3 minutes to try 4 more passwords. It'd take forever for them to be able to guess the right password. How long do we stop them from putting in passwords if they log out? 3 minutes. Okay, let's put in the command. Make sure you're in global configuration mode. Login block for 180, attempts for within 120. So what does this mean? Login block for 180 means we want to create a login block that lasts 180 seconds, which is the 3 minutes. Attempts for means after 4 attempts. Within 120 means that the 4 attempts have to be within a 120 second window, which is 2 minutes. The next policy states that there should be a strong 10-character password for privileged exec mode. If we look at our work documentation, they mention that the privileged exec passwords should be intertech. To enable the secret password, we have to be in global configuration mode and input enable secret intertech. Policy 6 states that there should be a strong 10-character password for the console line and that VTY lines should use the local account to authenticate. The password should be IT Warrior according to management. So let's put in the commands. Line console 0, password IT Warrior, log in. And then for the VTY lines, we don't want to create a separate password, but instead use the local account's username and password. So for this one, we'll use the command line VTY 015 login local. Policy 7 states that we should shut down unused ports. Let's do a show IP int brief command to see all the interfaces on the switch. Make note of whether any of the interfaces are down. That means the interfaces have nothing connected to them. Those are the interfaces we'll want to shut down with the shut command. Next, policy states we should place a MOTD banner that reads unauthorized use of this device is strictly prohibited. From global configuration mode, use the command banner MOTD unauthorized use of this device is strictly prohibited. Okay, great. Remember to continue to update your notes with what you're changing each time. Policy 9 is to disable CDP. To disable CDP, just use the no CDP run command. Policy 10 is to encrypt all passwords as some passwords were not encrypted. To make sure that all the passwords are encrypted in the configuration files, we need to enter the command service password-encryption in global configuration mode. Remember to save the switch configuration with the write command, WR. Now save the packet tracer. In your Google Word doc, use your notes to write out a narrative of what you've done to complete this project. Then share the Google Drive folder you have for this lab and a work paper documentation for Part 1 and Part 2 with the anyone with a link can organize, add, and edit access. Then submit the lab, Part 1 and 2, for review by clicking the button below. If you don't know how to submit the lab, refer to the instructions in the lab's intro video section of this program. After that, you can move on to the next lab.